primarily what's coming out in the predictive, like that's how,
So, you know,
that's how precision weighting is working. It's basically doing this multi-dimensional opponent processing, this multi-dimensional complexification, this multi-dimensional evolution of your adaptive fit. And then the two models come together and they fit together. And it's like the marriage between Darwinian natural selection and Mendelian genetics, the two theories just dovetail and come together, and they converge on a solution to the frame problem.
Okay, so
and then I'll be able to use that to talk about consciousness.
Okay. Well, I wanted to just make a segue here that people might find interesting. I think all that's modeled extremely well, particularly by symphonic music, because what you have, if you listen to symphonic music, what you see is there's dialogues at the level of the instrument. Right, so there'll be a proposition and then a counter response. And then all those dialogues are structured hierarchically in relationship to a higher order structure, and that's the melodic integrity of the entire piece. And people will align themselves with that, right? And so you can see this multi-dimensional processing occurring in a musical piece that speaks to the core issue of reality, which is actually the harmony and the beauty of the piece itself. Right? And so, and that means that deep meaning that you're describing is pointing to something like the optimized balance between multiple levels of processing simultaneously. And some of that is also temporal, right? Balancing the here and now, as you said, with the, what did you call it?
The there and then.
Right. And so the reality is the emergent balance between all those different viewpoints rather than any given viewpoint.
And it flows, right? Like, so think this is perfect. Because, you know, music is basically playing with our salience landscaping for the sake of playing. It's computer. It's for me. It's the being mode. It's not the having mode. We're not trying to do anything. We're in pure development because we're doing pure play. We play music.
It's pure play. Yeah,
pure play.
You bet.
Right?
Music is the closest. What Rex Murphy said. All art aspires to the condition of music.
Right. And notice how music is not in you or. It's between, it's fundamental, the resonance, the betweenness, the connectedness, the fitness.
You see that in dancing.
Right, and then John Rusin, in Bearing Witness to Epiphany, and I got to talk to John Rusin, he said, and this is so, and he admits it because he's deeply influenced by Plato, this is such a Platonic thing. Now, think about how intelligibility is basically, there's a musicality to intelligibility.
Right, definitely.
Right, so there are rhythms, right? And then there's melodies. Everything has its through line, which is like a melody. And then the melodies and the rhythm go together with an overarching harmony. And you're getting all of this salience, and so music.
And that's all pointing to something like an ultimate unity in some fundamental sense.
The one in Neoplatonism,
Right. Now, and I want to talk to you about that one idea too. So we'll get into that a little bit later.
But to return to consciousness.
Yes.
Okay. So, and consciousness is closely associated with, of course, with attention, with working memory, and with fluid intelligence.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And of course, there's quite high levels of correlation between working memory and standard measures of G.
Yes, they might be the same thing even.
Maybe.
Or they're very close.
They're close. Yes. So here's the idea. And I'm going to do that plausibility argument. So if you take a look at there's three questions. I did this at the debate. There's three questions about consciousness.
Okay.
One is, what's the nature of consciousness? How does this weird non-physical thing exist in the physical universe? That's right? But there's the function problem. What does consciousness do? Since you can do so much behavior as an intelligent zombie.
Right. Why not all of it?
Yeah, why not all of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then
because you do, the cerebellum is a good example of that, right? I think there's more neurons in the cerebellum than in the cortex. And it's not conscious by any normal measures. So it's like, obviously consciousness isn't a mere consequence of neural activity.
No.
So much of that's unconscious. And then it does beg the question, if so much of it is unconscious, why not all of it?
Right. And then the third question is a meta question. What's the relationship between the nature and the function question? Here's where I actually agree with Descartes. I disagree with a lot of current philosophy. Descartes tries to answer those two questions in an integrated fashion. The nature question and the function question should be answered together. What we tend to do in modern academic philosophy is we tend to separate them. We talk about just the function problem or just the hard problem, which is the nature problem. And that, if you just think about it for a minute, that's very problematic. Trying to talk about function without talking about nature is very, very problematic, and vice versa. Trying to talk about the nature of something without talking about how it functions with respect to other things, very, very problematic. There's a longer argument there. I'm just giving you the gist. So you want to argue. So, but if you take a look, right? If you take a look at some of the leading theories, let's take the global workspace theory, for example. And what's the function of consciousness in the global way? So the idea is your consciousness is something like your computer desktop, and your unconscious has all the files. And what consciousness is I can bring anything onto the desktop and I can manipulate it, and then I can broadcast it back to whatever I need.
Right. And you can, well, you update your unconscious doing that too, right? Because part of what consciousness does seem to do is to assess faulty unconscious actions, recalibrate them and rejig them. So consciousness is this thing that moves up and down the hierarchy of unconscious and regulates it.
Right, but here's the thing, and this of course is the frame problem. You can't check all of the possible error,
well,
right?
That's definitely a problem.
So, and this is, I'm not imposing this on Bars. Shanahan and Bars, right? What they publish, and Bars is explicitly argued. Shanahan has gone on, and Shanahan's important because Shanahan is literally the person who writes the Stanford Encyclopedia article on the frame problem, right? And so they argue that one of the functions of consciousness is to help solve the issue of relevance realization, the problem of relevance. Now, I don't think their solution works, but that's not the issue. They're saying, look, the function of consciousness is to do enhanced relevance realization. Then you look at the work of Bohr and Seth, and they say, well, what's the function of consciousness? The function of consciousness is like, and think about the relationship to working memory. It's to reorganize and restructure, like chunking, so we can, right? But then it's, and why? When do we need that? Well, we need it in situations. Compare when you can drive your car like a zombie and when you can't drive your car like a zombie, right? When I need consciousness
when something axiomatic has moved.
Well, yes, and it cashes out in this way. The problem I'm facing is now ill-defined rather than a well-defined problem for me. The problem is messy. There's sudden.
That's a path length multiplication problem.
Yes, and right, there's novelty. There is now stuff that I was previously able to discard as irrelevant error that I can't discard as irrelevant error anymore. So
and that would be associated with the fact that you'd have an automatized solution to whatever set of problems was making themselves manifest.
That's right.
You don't have to attend to it because you've already taken it into account. Even your perceptions has taken it into account.
You can allow a lot of little regular networks to run it.
Yes, right.
But now I get into this situation and I need to go into, right, a small world network. I need to have the system. I need to evolve and enhance my relevance. That's why you get a flash of consciousness when you have insight. You actually get that. And so you get that.
Or when something goes wrong.
Yes.
Right? It's like, that's consciousness. It's like, who wants that? But
okay, so, and there's a longer argument here, but